Hello and welcome back to the Bookshelf Odyssey. Today I'm going to do a reading wrap up for some of February. I, I had mentioned it in a previous video. I wanted to be doing more book wrap ups, reading wrap ups. Wasn't quite sure how to go about it, what would work for me. So I just had some time today. I'm going to talk about 3 books I've read recently. First of all, I read a really fantastic mystery thriller kind of story called Jackal by Erin Adams. I found the book on Goodreads in an article about Black writers that you should be reading during, Black History Month, and I'd been wanting to read some as a celebration of the month, and her book sounded interesting. It was nominated for the Edgar Award finalist, a Bram Stoker Award finalist, and the Shirley Jackson Award nominee, among others. And here's the description. Liz Roche is coming home, reluctantly. As a black woman, Liz doesn't exactly have fond memories of Johnstown, Pennsylvania, a predominantly white town. But her best friend is getting married, so she braces herself for a weekend of awkward, passive-aggressive reunions. Liz has grown, though. She can handle whatever awaits her. But on the night of the wedding, somewhere between dancing and dessert, the newlywed's daughter, Caroline, disappears, and the only thing left behind is a piece of white fabric covered in blood. As a frantic search begins, with the police combing the trees for Caroline, Liz is the only one who notices a pattern. A summer night, a missing girl, a party in the woods. She's seen this before. As Liz starts to dig through the town's history, she uncovers a horrifying secret about the place she once called home. Now, this book also says it combines mystery and some magical realism. It's been compared somewhat to Get Out, that film that came out a few years ago, and I can certainly see that connection. What I like about this is it's in some part like a horror novel, mystery novel, but it also is saying something interesting about society, about an issue, which I found I really enjoy. You can take a genre story, but then make it be almost literary in what it discusses and how it's viewed. So I really enjoyed that book. It is a bit graphic as far as violence goes. It's not too bad. I certainly have read worse, but weaker stomachs might be forewarned going in. And but otherwise, it's a fantastic read. Really just drew me into the story. So I really enjoyed that book. And then I read another book I want to talk about is for the Wasted Weekend for the garbaugust 2.5, I guess it was. I read Miss Death by Gwyn Evans. By Gwyn Evans, I believe was his name. What it's about is a woman who goes by the name Miss Death because she was given a 6-month time frame in which to live. She has a health issue that she's going to die from. So in those remaining 6 months, she decides, as one does, to turn to the life of crime, and basically blackmails a bunch of criminals to help her in her endeavor, with the promise that they will have a very rich payoff when she dies. But she has to die of natural causes. So they can't just kill her and get the money. She goes up against Sexton Blake, which is a British pulp hero from days of yore. And it engages in these 4 novellas. It's kind of what engages is this battle of wits between her and Sexton Blake. And I overall enjoyed the stories. There were some unfortunate stereotypes and some language used that I didn't care for. Saying that it's a product of its time always feels like kind of a cop out. And so going forward, I probably won't read any more Sexton Blake stories just because of that. It wasn't always the bad characters using such language. So that kind of was off-putting, but overall, I enjoyed the story itself and the mystery, and just the game of cat and mouse between Blake and Miss Death. And oddly, her character I found to be more rich and nuanced than the main character was. For me, he was just like a cookie cutter, fill in the blank, not superhero, but strongman character, and that you could get in any book from the 1930s, which is when it was published, I believe. Just on the strength of the main character, I really didn't enjoy it, but Miss Death was such a interesting character that I wish we could have gotten more from her perspective. But when you only have about 6 months to live, what are you going to do? But the final story was certainly the best one, I thought. And some of the premises were pretty outrageous or just kind of strange, but it is what it is, I guess. It reminded me of some of the old mystery stories you would hear on old time radio or something, that you would hear on the show Suspense or some mystery theater type program. So yeah, a lot of nostalgia with it, a little bit of racism, but not a book I'll be revisiting, but one, that helped pass a weekend. And yeah, I had a great reading weekend over the wasted weekend. Anyway, but yeah, so Miss Death, read wisely. If you're sensitive to, again, racial stereotypes, things like that, I would say go ahead and skip this. Skip that one. Now, and then the book I want to talk about more in depth is called Rabbits by Terry Miles. Now, I first heard about this book just last month. I listened to a podcast, and they do like a book club where the host will read a book, or we'll all read a book together, and then the host will talk about it on his podcast. And so the book that we chose was Rabbits. And Rabbits is a very interesting story. It's about this game called Rabbits, and it's kind of a mysterious, does it exist or doesn't it type game that people stumble into, and they begin to see patterns in the world around them that might start defining or defying reality. You see connections where maybe other people don't, and you begin to follow patterns and clues that lead you to win the game, whatever it is. It's almost like this underground, unspoken game that people play. You get the vibe of like a lot of gamers and like underground gamers kind of play. And this is a book that really wants to expand your thoughts on what reality even is. So not really my typical kind of book I'm drawn to, but this book was really, really compelling, in part because of the main character. Their name is Kay, and Kay is not gendered in the story. I think very purposefully so. I mean, Kay could be anyone, any gender, any person. So that was really interesting to read that. I viewed Kay as a female character, and I know some do, and some think of her as a him. So that in and of itself is fascinating, and how your preconceived ideas and your views of even of names and what way people behave and things will inform how you even gender that person. And Kay doesn't present themselves as somebody who is non-binary or non-gender. It just never mentioned. So that was an interesting part. Let me go ahead and read to you what the back cover says, because I think this will be helpful. Rabbits is a mysterious alternate reality game so vast it uses the entire world as its canvas. Since the game started in 1959, 10 iterations have appeared and 9 winners have been declared. The identities of these winners are unknown. So is their reward, which is rumored to include vast wealth, immortality, or perhaps even the key to the secrets of the universe. But the deeper you get, the more dangerous the game becomes. Players have died in the past, and the body count is rising. And the 11th round is about to begin. Enter Kay, a rabbit's obsessive who has been trying to find a way into the game for years. The path opens when Kay is approached by billionaire Alan Scarpio, the alleged winner of the 6th iteration. Scarpio says that something has gone wrong with the game and that Kay needs to fix it before 11 starts, or the whole world will pay the price. 5 days later, Scarpio is declared missing, and Kay seems to be all that stands between the world and chaos. So it is a little bit like the Da Vinci Code in that sense, where they're following clues, sometimes just kind of stumbling onto it. It's not really anything, though, that you could figure out like you might be able to with books like the Da Vinci Code. But it's mostly like Kay follows symbols around Seattle being brought to different locations, meeting different people. So it's almost like a fantasy quest in that sense. But then it's almost like the movie The Matrix. But then it's none of those things, and it really just stands on its own as a wonderful piece of imaginative literature. And what I liked about this is that, as strange and weird as it would get at times, and not all of the mysteries that are brought up in the book are solved, but or not all of the things are explained. I'll put it that way, without giving away spoilers. But the end is very satisfying and understandable, and I liked how the book ended. If you're worried about that, I would have really been frustrated if the book ended kind of some kind of vague or unsure way, to the point where, the author would say, well, you just have to imagine your own ending. And I'm like, no, that's lazy. Don't do that. I hate that. And so, yeah, it dabbles a little bit in gamer culture. It dabbles a bit in nostalgia of like the 80s and 90s of old computer games and pinball games and things like that. It has some minor, possible multiverse shenanigans happening. I thought the descriptions were great, especially of Seattle. Terry Miles, I think, says he lives, he splits his time in Seattle, and definitely I can tell that he's been there. And but yeah, overall, it's just a really well told story. And I actually took a while to read it, not because it wasn't compelling, but because I was enjoying it so much, I didn't want to rush through it. Some people's experience have been, once they started reading it, they just had to sit and read it until it was done. And I can see that, but I really enjoyed approaching this at a very leisurely pace. And I think that helped me from not being quite as confused as to the plot. However, the last 50 pages, I just couldn't put down. And I just gobbled those last pages up this morning, actually. A couple of quotes I really loved from this book. These are both towards the end, and one takes place in a Starbucks. And I can't really explain what was happening without giving away spoilers and things, but as they were following clues, the world looks like it could end if they don't win this game. Stakes are pretty high. And it says this, and this is from Kay's perspective. It says, I felt my stomach drop. I looked over at a tower of chocolate espresso beans and an artisanal popcorn that was flanked by baskets of bottled water on either side. There was no way the world could possibly end among things like these, was there? I thought back to Crow's weird lecture about being locked in the trunk of a car. At least in that scenario, you knew where you stood. There was something about considering an apocalyptic event while standing in the middle of a Starbucks, staring at a banana nut muffin that felt sadly unreal. And I like that. You think the world's going to end and you're in a place that's quite, dramatic or impressive, or at least, in a place that would make sense. But no, here we are just standing in a Starbucks surrounded by coffee beans and popcorn, and yeah, the world's going to end. And then another character described the end of the universe like this, that this is poetry right here about the dying of the universe. She said, a universe doesn't die like a person. It's not light fading from a cage of blood and bone. It's billions of years of starfire and wonder. And I love that description of the universe, of reality, that it is full of billions of years of starfire and wonder. That you have all this amazing creation and stars and galaxies and universes and existence and all of that wrapped up in wonder that is just as impressive as a fiery star. That was just, oh, I really like that quote. That was a good quote. A great book, really interesting book. So if you're looking for something very unusual and fresh to read, I would definitely recommend Rabbits. I think it's probably going to be one of my top 10 favorite books of this year. I know we're only into February, but that's a book I'm going to talk about a lot in, I think, this year's wrap up video. But I still have 10 months Well, over 10 months left of reading yet to do. So we won't count our chickens before they're hatched, I suppose. But all right, those are a couple of books that I've been reading lately. I will post again in a couple weeks or so some more books that I've been reading. I think I might just do that kind of an approach. Just film a video every now and then as far as wrap ups go. If once I've read about 2 or 3 books I feel like are worth talking about, or I have something to say about. So that might be the way to go. We'll see how that works. I don't know. I am the king of unfinished projects. I admit that. So in any case, thank you for watching. I'd really love it if you could like and subscribe to this. Like this video and subscribe if you haven't already. We're on our way to 700 subscribers. We're getting so close. I can't wait to reach that mark. That's just an incredible number. Thank you for all of those who have subscribed. And until next time, thanks for watching, everyone. Oh, and of course, are you playing the game?